Hey, I'm Cameron. Welcome back to the Busy Gardener channel. Today we're going to take and we're going to repurpose one of these barrels with a failed blueberry in it, and we're going to do something exotic, something called the dragon fruit. Let's get busy. Hey bud, what do you have up here? What are we bringing up?
The dragon fruit.
Do you see what kind of name it has on it? What kind of dragon fruit is that?
Condor.
Condor. Well, bring it up here. Let's get it into the orchard. Hey, so the dragon fruit is an exotic succulent that is essentially kind of like a cactus, but it grows in a tropical climate. The dragon fruit is big, and now you can see why they call it a dragon fruit. It almost looks like there are these segments where it slowly winds up, and you almost picture a dragon's head up here. And it's breathing fire, but instead of breathing fire, this thing breathes tasty fruit that tastes a little bit to me like kiwi, actually. Kind of sweet, but kind of sour. Tangy, really. It's got fruit. They've got a couple of different colors. They've got one where the inside is colored white. There are those that are colored red or reddish, and that's what this one is, this Condor cultivar. I didn't even realize there were so many kinds. I just thought there was white and there was red, but my wife was at the Cal Poly farm store, and she says, hey, do you have any interest in any of these things? And I saw dragon fruit. I said, all right, let's give it a shot. So I quickly looked some up, and I got this Condor cultivar. Depending on how this goes, you might try some others. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna walk through how to prepare a barrel to hold these things. How do you plant one of these and how do you have it grow? So let's get started with some of the materials. Okay, we're gonna look at what some of the things are that we're gonna need in order to build our structure. These dragon fruit grow upward, and then they create this kind of umbrella where all of the fruit forms. So that's what we're gonna be working on, is building. So first, we have our now empty half barrel. Those are great, those are food grade. I think this thing had jalapenos in it before. Something that I'm using to line the bottom of it is some of this foam. Now, there's a channel, oh gosh, is it Spicy Tropicals? They do a lot on dragon fruit and have been really instructive on this. So I'll put a link right here and you'll be able to see what it's supposed to be. What I've been using, they use packing peanuts to line the bottom of it. What I'm using, I had this kind of, it's not closed foam, I think it's just open foam, probably what boogie boards have in them. And I've cut up into a bunch of little pieces, so I'm gonna put those in the bottom of it. I thought that I'd cut enough. I need to cut this up even further. What we also have is this drainage pipe with a cap on the end of it. That's gonna create our upright structure. Here we've got our conduit, which is gonna go through the bottom of this thing and help keep the thing upright. We have some rebar that's gonna go across the top of the umbrella, as well as this grate. This is made for like pouring concrete. I'm gonna cut off a section of it that's gonna create kind of a platform for this dragon fruit to rest on top of. Finally, over here we've got our couple of soils. The guy on that channel recommends using just like a compost. I wasn't comfortable using just compost, so what I'm doing is, because it's a succulent, I'm going to be using this cactus, palm, and citrus to start, and I'm going to amend it with this thing called Amend. It's essentially puts a bunch of extra organic matter into that, so that way it'll help that dragon fruit to boom. First thing we're going to do is we're going to measure the space across this bin here, this barrel, and I'm going to cut this conduit so that way I've got two spans going across, one this way and one this way, and that's going to create the base structure. It's going to use the strength of the barrel to hold that this pipe upward. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be measuring a couple of places. I'm going to drill holes in this as well as in the barrel, and this conduit is going to go through this way, and then a little bit lower it'll be going through that way to create some stability for our umbrella. So let's measure this out. So it's about 2 feet across. It's not exactly round. As this is sat out here, it started to deform a little bit with the weight of the soil of that dead blueberry. But what I'm going to do is, this conduit is 10 feet long. I'm going to cut it into 2.5 foot lengths. interesting, just scoring it creates a place of weakness where you're able to easily bend it and it'll snap right there. So it's perfect. This is that 1/2-inch conduit. It's gonna be perfect going across here. Looks great. For this 1/2-inch conduit, it's 1/2 inch on the inside, and looks like my 3/4 bit, my 3/4 spade bit, which is what I'm gonna use, is about the right size for the outside of it. See how that fits pretty flush? We want there to be as much integrity as possible and as little wiggle room as possible. So we'll try this. If it's not exactly quite a fit, then what I'll use is probably come in with my Dremel and file away some of that stuff, or come in with a little rasp and do that. So I measured this. It's going to be about 4 inches from the bottom here, and then 8 inches up. So they're going to be perpendicular to each other when they're coming through here. So let's take a closer look. Finally, it took a little bit of measuring, looking around, but if you use that, you probably saw how I was using the holes as a guide, and that seems like a fairly straightforward way to do this. I've not done this before, and so I'm happy with how this turned out. It's pretty true at the top. It's got a little bit of lean, but I don't think anything that'll be too much of a problem. You might notice that it has a little bit of a lean to it. I don't think that's going to make any huge difference. We're going to have to support this in some way because of the winds anyway. And so what we might do is, once we have our eventual structure, we might have a couple of just tie downs going down to create a little bit of stability so it's not doing this sort of stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drill 1/2-inch holes, same thing going this way and this way through this firm and sturdy cap. And that way I'm going to be able to put my 1/2-inch rebar through it to support the eventual umbrella for the plant. What you're going to notice is that here it's pretty high on the cap. And as I go on to the other side, you'll notice that because I was going through the cap, I didn't have a good perspective. I drilled a bit lower. I'm going to use this Dremel to make the holes a little bit bigger for the rebar to go through. Okay, so this is essentially turning in, created a fairly firm structure, and it's funny because even though we have a lean on the tower, the actual platform itself is really level, kind of by accident, so I'll take it. Next thing we need to do is to take this grate, cut it down to size, and lay it on top of this to create a more even platform for this.
Hello, my name is Caitlin, and we are gonna see the weather today. So far, my brother, who is 6 years old, predicted that at 1 or 5:30, and maybe it'd be at 3, 4, 5:30, or maybe at 6 or later tonight. That's it.
Go. This is going to sit on top of here, and what's going to happen is after we're going to put this foam in here, we're going to plant the dragon fruit. It's going to climb up. I'm going to put some sort of like burlap or fabric around here, and I'm going to tie that, and I'm going to just help the dragon fruit make its way up. Then it's going to come pop through here, and it's going to expand out on the top of this canopy and drape over the sides, hopefully with a ton of fruit. Let's get to that. We're gonna zip tie the top of this. Oh no. We need this hose. This hose is gonna go on top of here, and because the sun hits this metal and makes it all hot, we don't want the dragon fruit to get burned, so we're gonna put this on as a barrier. So the dragon fruit sits on top of a nice rubbery thing and goes over the side. That was a close one. Something that is a little bit rough is that bright blue container, especially then you've got this huge thing going up and this canopy thing on the top. I really don't want that in my line of sight when I'm first coming into the orchard. I've got this nice look, and so it's been a little bit of a challenge to think through where I want to put this. However, given that these plants in front of this are guava, they're kind of a tropical plant, I think I'm going to probably put the umbrella behind those. That way it's still visible, it's tall enough to get the light and sun that it needs above, you know, the eventual canopy of that guava. It's going to get some of that southern exposure, and it's going to get heat from the wall. But that is the one downside of trying to do dragon fruit in a container like this. I still might come back and drape that with some sort of burlap or something to get rid of that bright blue back there. Look, you can't miss it. Green, 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 blue. All right, we took a break from last time and are coming back here to do this. What I've got is I don't have any burlap to put around this to let the dragon fruit grab onto it. So what I'm gonna do is this extra landscape fabric that I have, I'm gonna wrap it around and I'm gonna crinkle it up a little bit so that way the roots have these little tentacles that come out of the dragon fruit. Will have something to get a hold of as it goes up. I think I might also cut some of this down and put it around the base of this just to get rid of some of that blue, so I'm not just looking at this shock of blue. So I'm gonna find a thing of this. Oh, this is great. It's already the right size for it. Wow. Glad I went with the larger one. All right, so we're just gonna cut straight down. All right, let's give this a shot. I'm gonna use zip ties to zip tie this up. It's important when you're using zip ties outside that you use these UV repellent ones. That's not the right word, but the ones that are going to help to not be broken down by UV. The white ones get broken down. Typically the black ones are for indoor or outdoor use. So to crinkle it, what I'm doing is I'm kind of rotating it so that it bunches up a little bit and gives a little bit of structure, so it's not entirely smooth. I don't want it to be super smooth. I want it to be broken up a little. So you probably can see some of the texture that's there. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to cut open this citrus palm and cactus soil, as well as this amend, and when I pour that in, I'm going to be essentially mixing them both in, and then I'm going to be agitating them. So they're not going to be perfectly mixed in, but they're going to be pretty close. Starting to look pretty good. You know, it took a lot less soil than I thought it would. Almost have enough for a second container. Okay, what I'm gonna do now is, well, I guess I wanna say it first. When I plug this in, ouch, this thing has thorns. When I plant this, I'm gonna plant it on one side, and then eventually I'm gonna cut one of these things off, one of these, I don't even know what they call this. It's not a branch, it's not a stalk, I don't know what it's called. But I'm gonna cut one of these off and propagate it and let it root out as well. So then we're gonna have a couple of multiple plants coming up this one pole. So that way we've got one coming up this side, maybe two more for this cultivar, this Condor cultivar. If I try another one, then I'll have another one of these things. So let's make room for this guy. And be careful of these thorns here. These thorns are really feeling it. I'm gonna break up the roots a little bit. You always wanna do that so that way they have some room to grow. Might cause a little bit of shock for the tree initially, but it's a good thing overall. Boy, you know what's getting in the way is this training stick. Oh, and you know what I'm noticing too, that I need it to be as close to this pole as I can get it, so that way it's not having to go at an angle. That's probably not that big a deal, but what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be attaching this to the pole with some of this gardener tape, this green gardener tape. And so I'm going to use some of this gardener tape to secure the bottom before I cut the stick away. The nice thing about this gardener tape is that it stretches, so it's not like using twine or some sort of other rope. What happens is because it's elastic, as these plants grow out, there's a little bit of movement that it allows, so that way it doesn't cut off, cut off those nutrients that are going up. Again, you can't let it go too long. It's not a forever option, but it'll work really well for what we're doing here. Now I can cut off all of the other supports. Alright, our bamboo stake is gone. Get some more of this stuff. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to encourage this to hug this landscape fabric so that way it grabs a hold of it. I don't want this stuff facing on the north side. I want it to be able to get some sun exposure. So I'm going to move it a little bit to the southern side. And also I'm noticing that this thing is on a bit of a slant. So we're on a downhill right now. I don't know if that's evident in the video, but because we're on a downhill slant, something I'm going to do is come in and I'll grab some of this material here and I'll lift it up. And I'm just trying to level it off so that way it's going to be as upright as possible, straight up. Yeah, that's a little bit better. So now what we need to do is we need to water this in so that way the soil settles and this dragon fruit knows that there's some soil at the edges of it. Once all that soil settles with the water, it'll kind of cement and become this solid thing. You might notice I also have it set back here behind my guava, pomegranate. This is kind of a subtropical right here, or tropical even, and so that's going to do really well with this. My final thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to try to attach a little bit of this landscape fabric, just because I don't want to see this blue stuff going on. I might come back in and zip tie this on. Yeah, I might just do that. I might come in and zip tie it. But in the meantime, I'm gonna find some little rocks that will just hold it in place. So this is the before, and this is gonna be the after. I think what I'll do is just to use, for now, I'll come in and zip tie this onto the actual structure itself, but I'm gonna just use some rocks to weigh this stuff on here in the meantime. That'll work well. This landscape fabric will allow water as it hits it to separate in and go down in, and through there. Oh yeah, that's way better. I'm gonna go look at this from far away. How does it look? That looks a lot better. So there's a little bit of blue that's visible on the inside rim, but it doesn't have that same shock of blue. I think this is a good. Wow, so this has been a lot of fun. really unusual for me to do something that isn't an actual fruit tree, but doing something like a cactus. I never thought I'd be planting a cactus in my orchard. And yeah, we've got one there, essentially this dragon fruit, this condor dragon fruit. I think we're gonna give its best chance to survive and thrive. It's gonna have a ton of sun as it's going across. I'm gonna be running an irrigation line out to it so that way it gets plenty of irrigation. Although I should probably test it to see if it is getting any irrigation from one of our micro sprinklers there. It's kind of fun. That's the nice thing about having an orchard like this, is that you really do have the space to try new things, and hopefully this channel is giving you the confidence to try some of those things you may not have otherwise thought were possible. What do you think of this? Do you have any questions? If you have any experience with dragon fruit, maybe you can give me some tips that'll help me out. If you think this channel is great, I'd love for you to subscribe. If that's not your thing, that's all right too. But yeah, this is sure a lot of fun, and until next time, stay busy. Moment of truth.